Wow, this thing is really loud. I haven't had it on in a while. I didn't think it was going to be like this. This is not going to work for the video. You guys need to be able to hear me. Oh,
That thing's a giant hand.
calm down. I'm just going to shut you off.
It's almost as if it means to grab us.
I'm going to turn you back on when we're done. Where's the switch? Okay. So you're here for the big unboxing of the new 4K remaster of Star Trek the Motion Picture, what I consider to be the last of the old Hollywood films. And let's define what I mean by that. First off, I'm talking about old Hollywood from the audience's perspective. In the days of old Hollywood, going to the movies was an event. Just like going to church, it was the place to be seen, to get dressed up in your best finery and mingle with the masses, and find out what new controversy that silly little Chaplin fellow was up to. The buildings themselves were incredibly ornate, a lot having been converted from old vaudeville theaters into a single-screen movie palace with ornate architecture, winding staircases, and Phantom of the Opera-like chandeliers. Even for me, growing up in the 80s, going to the movies was an event. The nearest town was 45 minutes away, so we'd have to hunt down the movie times in the newspaper, back time the drive time, factor in time to eat dinner. It was a whole thing, but doing these types of things helped build the suspense and anticipation, especially if there was a lot of excitement over what we were going to go see. Which made it all the more crushing when something happened that had never happened before, and to my recollection, never happened again. We were going to see Star Trek the Motion Picture. Being a massive Star Trek fan, I was already wound up beyond belief. After the long drive and a nice dinner, we drove to the theater and found the line to see the film stretched all the way around the building, and my dad just noped the hell out of there and we drove home. I was just a kid back then, but I was flat out devastated, in tears. Obviously, we finally got to see it, and I was not disappointed. Right off the bat, I was shown something I had never seen before. And little did I know I would never see it again. These days, before a movie starts, we're assaulted by endless commercials, app games, and Maria Menounos. But in the days of old Hollywood, huge films were often preceded by an orchestral overture. We're talking films like West Side Story, Citizen Kane, King Kong, Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago. I could go on, but you get the idea. I didn't know what was happening at the time, but we were treated to 3 minutes of Ailea's theme, with nothing but a star field before us, as if we were the Enterprise itself, headed for adventure. Instead of the barrage of noise we get today, this was the perfect palate cleanser, a moment to breathe, to detach yourself from the outside world, and to prepare you for what was to come. As a quick side note, this is also the first taste of what I consider to be one of the greatest film soundtracks of all time. Jerry Goldsmith's music was every bit a functional character of this film, right down to the use of a certain sound that identified V'ger itself. If you can think of another film where the soundtrack or orchestra was used instead of special effects, let me know in the comments below. Paramount was committed to making this film big. Movies had been changed forever the year before by an upstart by the name of George Lucas, and they felt they had to bring out the biggest of guns. They brought on Robert Wise, no stranger to huge movies, having directed The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Andromeda Strain, West Side Story, The Hindenburg. Oh, and this thing, which won Best Picture and Best Director, and deservedly so. Add in some special effects guys from 2001: A Space Odyssey and a $15 million budget, and they were off to the races. Yeah, a $15 million budget was huge back in the day, and they ended up going over budget to the tune of $44 million, which was record-breaking back then. Downright comical when you consider the new Avatar film took nearly $500 million to make. But back then, the studios were still trying to wrap their heads around what Star Wars had done to the film industry. For perspective, the number 2 movie in 1977 was Smokey and the Bandit. So that says a lot about what their expectations were budgetarily. It also says a lot about where the expectations from the audience had been, which is why Star Wars blew everyone away. Unlike the sequels that would come after, Star Trek the Motion Picture was a hardcore science fiction film that just happened to have the crew of the Enterprise there to sort things out. By contrast, Star Trek IV is nearly the exact same plot, but it's very much a Star Trek movie with a mysterious probe in the background as a plot device to move the story along. But while reuniting the crew was critical to the plot, the star of the show was all about V'ger. It was vast, threatening. Most movie viewers these days wouldn't have the patience for the dread and awe the film was building to. In the original cut of the film, we never even get to see all of V'ger at once. It was too huge. And personally, I think that's the only drawback to the director's cut. Like Jaws, it's better when you don't see the whole thing and leave a little to the imagination. But at the time, it was out of necessity. They didn't have the budget or the time to finish all of the special effects of the film. The final lock of the film was only made just mere hours before the premiere. Like Blade Runner, the motion picture has been a work in progress for 43 years, and finally, with this 4K release, I think it's safe to say Robert Wise got the film he wanted. Alright, and here it is. This includes all 3 cuts of the film, including the special longer version and the original 1979 theatrical cut. These are all restored and remastered in 4K Ultra HD with HDR10 and Dolby Vision, and Dolby Atmos if you've got the home theater that can handle it, and if you don't have one, I suggest you go get one. Something really important to note here is if you want the director's cut in 4K, this is the only way to get it right now. The current 4K box set of all the OG Trek films only has the theatrical cut. Backing sheet. Okay, there is a lot of stuff in here. Let's see, where do we start? Let's grab the book first. Now, this is going to have a lot of behind-the-scenes kind of stuff, and there are some essays. I think there's never before published photos in here. Oh, schematics. Conceptual art. Spock selfies. The revamping of the Klingons. Yeah, don't forget, this is the first time we've seen the Klingons since the original series, so they looked dramatically different. Bumper stickers. I'm guessing these are smaller. I mean, they went to the trouble of reproducing bumper stickers, but they didn't make them bumper sticker sized. Ooh, I like this one. Press kit photos. Some of these also might have been used as lobby cards. When I'm talking about old Hollywood, lobby cards were also another sign of the times because there was no internet. All you had was word of mouth and TV commercials, things like that. So they would have lobby cards that would be in the lobby. So while you were waiting for your wife to buy her popcorn or whatever, you could stand there and look at some of these lobby cards that were on the wall that would have behind the scenes stuff and things like that. Some reproduction stickers. What is this? Oh, this must be the poster. The tiny poster that probably no one's going to hang up anywhere. There's the digital code for all the digital versions of the movies and the 3 discs. Click like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Oh, before we go, let's turn these guys back on so they can get back to wherever it is they were going. Johnny?
Am I seeing things?
Not unless I am too.
Reverse all engines.
All engines, reverse.